So I want to play you something here. This is my ringtone.
What's going on? Not now, Jimmy. This is
Stop.
What's going on? Not now, Jimmy.
Hold.
What's going on? Not now, Jimmy. All right, this is an ongoing investigation. Wait over there. Let's move, Jimmy.
Let's move, Jimmy.
Not now, Jimmy. What's going on? What's going on? Not now.
Shut up.
So what's going on is something that I frequently am asking Jimmy about. What's going on? Because he has so many things going on. And this is Jimmy LeBrecht. To the world, I think he's Jim LeBrecht. But you can tell the fact that I called him Jimmy LeBrecht. I know him for a long time. So welcome to the Human Perspective.
I'm really glad to be with you, Judy.
And it's very exciting because we're here in Jimmy's studio. So maybe you could give us a little bit of an overview about the studio and your company and the work you do.
I have a audio post-production company that is primarily serving the documentary community. There's a very rich documentary community in the Bay Area, here in the East Bay especially. We're in a building called the Fantasy Building in Berkeley, which has been home to Saul Zaentz and his film center for many, many years, and is still home to a lot of documentary filmmakers. And we have a wonderful mix stage down the hallway, and Fantasy Studios, which is a world-class studios on the first floor. I had worked my way from doing sound for theater into film in the very, very late 80s. And so I wound up working with the Saul Zaentz Film Center and Skywalker Sound a bit. But I also opened up my own business about 20 so odd years ago. And what that did was allow me to kind of work on smaller projects and kind of control my destiny a little bit better, which I've been in therapy for years. And enough said. So
Maybe ask you a little more about destiny. So when did you acquire your disability?
I was born with spina bifida,
Mm-hmm.
so I've never been able to walk.
So when did you get involved and become really interested in sound?
My dad was the kind of guy that had a hi-fi, mono speaker, and he had his hi-fi kind of built into our playroom at the bottom and the lowest part of the house. And so
This is in New York, right?
this is New York, so I'd be crawling around, down in there, and I'd open up the door, and there were these tubes in there that were glowing, and buttons and switches, and I really kind of liked it. And my dad was the kind of guy that had a woolen sack reel-to-reel and would record Broadway cast albums off the radio, and had a speaker wired up to the kitchen, and so he was really into recording and playing sounds and such. And I was kind of like indoctrinated into it, but really, really, really liked it.
So when did you decide that this was going to be something beyond like a little kid's hobby, and you were going to seriously pursue a career originally in sound?
Well, I wound up falling into the drama clique in high school, so probably around 10th grade or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of acting, but I also had a reel-to-reel tape deck. And you could go out and buy sound effects records and transfer them over. So I started doing some sound effects work for the plays in high school. And I really kind of liked doing that. And I went off to college at UC San Diego. Originally, I thought I was going to be an acoustics major because all I knew is that I wanted to do sound for the Grateful Dead. I was just, teenager.
That was your goal.
That was my goal. And what I didn't really realize was that acoustics is all math and physics, which I was horrible at. In fact, my physics teacher kind of came up to me before graduation and said, Jim, there's some things in this world we're really good at and other things we're not, and maybe we shouldn't try to do things we're not very good at. I said, well, thank you, Dr. Abbott. I had no idea he was talking about my going to be acoustics, student in San Diego. So I get there and I'm failing calculus, like pre-calculus, right? And it's like, this is not going to work. So I go down to the theater department, which was a drama department at the time, and just to kind of see whether maybe I could do sound on something. As it turns out, they just happened to be doing a production of Antigone and Oedipus in an outdoor space at the Central Library at UCSD, all flat, all concrete. And I said, "Can I help out?" And said, "Sure, you could be head of the sound crew." Because who wants to do sound? You want to be an actor, you want to be a director, you want to be a lighting designer, a costume designer. So I wound up making sure everything was patched properly every day and running sound check, and was one of the sound operators. And I found a home in that department doing that. And I continued doing sound on productions at UC San Diego, and realized this is my art. I have an affinity for this, and I have an understanding of everything from kind of how loud things should be to what's an appropriate sound, and sound is something that's intangible. You can't just kind of pick it up and say, "Here's what your sound's going to sound like," but you can talk about it. And when you start talking about it, you have to find a language, and a lot of people aren't really facile in doing that.
What was your first major job in sound? And how did you get it?
I guess my huge break was getting a job at the Berkeley Repertory Theater.
Which is a very renowned theater in
Very
the
renowned
United
regional
States.
theater.
Mhm.
And I joined them in the fall of 1978. The previous summer, I'd worked at a summer theater in Santa Maria called the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts. And there were a number of people from Berkeley Rep that were working there that summer because they were doing renovations on their storefront theater in Berkeley. So I met Paul Dixon, who had been their resident sound designer. We were both sound people on shows there, and I met Michael Liebert, the founder and director of the theater. And so when I graduated college, I heard that Paul was going to be leaving Berkeley Rep to start a new wave band. And so I applied for the job. And as the story I heard later from Paul was, now at this time Berkeley Rep was not in their beautiful downtown facilities. It was a storefront up on College Avenue, right? And so to get up to the sound booth, I'd have to kind of go around the back, climb up some wooden steps to get into the booth.
You may not be able to see, but Jimmy uses a motorized wheelchair and doesn't walk.
I was also in a lot better shape in my 20s than I am now. So I'm a little bit heavier now. So I was really agile. I mean, I could do this really well, and it wasn't really pleasant because those steps were outdoors. So when it was raining, my wheelchair was like under some Visqueen down at the bottom of the stairs, and it was it was arduous, but it was doable. But so the managing director says to Paul, "But Paul, Jim can't walk." And Paul said, "Well, he's the best damn sound designer I know." And what Paul told me later was that I was the only sound designer he knew.
So that's where you got your start.
That's really where I got my start. And
So for younger people sound is not a career that most people are successful in, disabled or not. So for people who are interested in exploring their heart, as opposed to what people are telling them maybe they'll be good at, what advice would you give them?
I think it's really important to try to do something that you really enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, in life, there's many ways that we kind of find happiness and comfort and everything else, be it with our family or our kids or just simply our community. But we do spend a lot of time at applications. And so for me, this was something that I was really drawn to and I really enjoyed. And I had the ability and the resources to really kind of build a career, and wound up working at other theaters during my kind of 10 years as a sound designer in the theater. And so I think that you just look at, well, how do you want to spend your time here, and how are you going to try to make it work? So there's some
And not be
variables,
afraid
right?
of taking risks.
I would never be afraid of taking a risk, because But I read this wonderful book by Leo Descalia when I was in college called Living, Loving, and Learning. And he starts off kind of talking about these two people that are kind of on their deathbeds. You know, they're very old and their time has come. And one of them is very, very unhappy and really is just struggling, and the other person is rather complacent and okay. And basically, the person that was okay had taken risks and had really tried, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I can't do that," or "Gee, I should have tried." It really had a very profound effect on me in regards to saying, I don't want to have regrets at the end of my days that I didn't try to do it. Doesn't mean that you're not going to fail. There's a lot of successful and wonderful people out there who have failed remarkably large.
Yeah.
You know, you just look at Silicon Valley and such, and so many other people. But to have taken that risk and to have tried is something that I think is essential in life.
So, once again, we are up with our time, and I just want to say that we'll do more interviews with Jimmy in the future, and look him up, please, and we'll give you some information about how you can, because now he's also beginning to work on a film called Crip Camp, so he's expanding his horizon, and we're also interested in learning from you, how many of you out there who have disabilities are involved in media, sound, production, etc. Have a great day. See you soon.